Hello, doing a review here of Fallen Angels. I actually mentioned this film in my previous video from a couple of weeks back, where I was just showing off some new pickups for my collection, my slasher collection. This is one of the DVDs that I briefly mentioned there. I did say I'd do a full review in the future, so I guess here it is. This is a 2002 slasher film, fairly low budget one, directed by Ian David Diaz. I think it's mainly a Canadian film, but there could possibly be a British crossover here, so it could be kind of like a joint effort between the two countries. This is the Region 2 release that you see here, the European version, but I assume it probably did get released in the States and Canada as well, with it being a Canadian film primarily, so possibly it's also got some alternative artwork perhaps. I'm not sure. This is the Region 2 version though. Anyway, to go into the story of this, it's set at like a high school, for all-girls high school in New York, quite a posh one. And it starts off with a prologue where we learn that sometime before, one of the students has been approached by the history professor, who's quite lecherous. He's kind of come on to her, made some sexual advances towards this girl, who's rebuffed him and kind of rejected him, and indeed reported him to the relevant authorities. He's got in trouble. But surprisingly, because he's quite a popular professor on campus, the rest of the students kind of side with him ahead of the girl, and she kind of gets bullied in the aftermath because of it, because they don't really believe her, and they think she's making it up. But because the professor's got in trouble, he tries to corner the girl to kind of get her to retract her statement, so he kind of takes her down to the basement of the school and tries to persuade her to retract the allegations, but in doing so, they kind of like a scuffle breaks out and they get into a bit of a violent altercation, which results in a fire breaking out. Some candles get knocked over and a big fire breaks out. The girl manages to escape, but supposedly this fire kills the history professor, and it also kind of spreads throughout the school and kills quite a lot of the students, so a big tragedy. And we then jump forward to the present day, where the girl is actually called back to the site of the school to kind of shoot a documentary about the situation several years on, talking about the incident itself and plus how it's affected her life since. And joining her for this are 3 students from the school as well, and incidentally they just happen to be 3 of the ones that actually bullied her back in the day, so 3 of her buddies have come back for this project as well. But as you can guess, with it being a slasher film, someone kind of turns up at the campus as well that doesn't want the thing to reach completion, and he starts picking them off one by one, trying to disrupt the proceedings. So that's the basic setup to it. Going into the good points now, and the first thing that I could mention is that there's quite a likeable cast of characters. I didn't really think that the final girl herself was that good, but apart from her, all the kind of supporting cast really kind of rally around her and do a great job, make it very watchable. Probably the most notable figure is Michael Ironside. It's kind of fairly well known in low budget horror. I think he was in Visiting Hours for example, and he plays the sheriff in this, kind of a bit part role, but he's pretty good. Probably the most entertaining character is a female one who plays the agent of one of the girls, who kind of persuades her to go ahead with the project. She's really funny at times, has some good lines, but overall it's a really good cast. Next good point is that the school looks great, quite atmospheric and gothic looking from the outside. It looks really cool. Great location. Unfortunately, it didn't quite look as good inside. I didn't think. It was a bit more barren and kind of like empty corridors and rooms more so inside, so it didn't quite capture the same feeling there. But certainly from the outside, it looked great. And the last good point that I've got is that the killer himself looks pretty decent. Nothing special, but he's got kind of like his dark black robes and kind of like night vision goggles to go with it, and it's kind of glow in the dark. They look pretty neat. So that's not bad. Nothing fantastic, like I say, but certainly very decent. So you can't complain there. Look at the back there. Incidentally, there were no extras really on this particular DVD release, so nothing to report there. But anyway, going into the bad points now. And the only real main one that sticks out, the only real fly in the ointment, is that it's very, very tame. You can see it's got a 15 certificate there on the cover, and it very much lives up to that. It's pretty bad when it comes to the kills. They're all pretty bad, to be honest. They're all, I don't want to say terrible, but they are close to terrible, to be honest. Very disappointing. Very, very little in the way of bloodshed and special effects. I guess they spent most of the budget on the actors and securing the location, perhaps didn't have much left over for the kind of kills. But unfortunately, it really does show, and it does kind of let things down a little bit, sucks a bit of the fun out of things. So that's the main drawback. Apart from that, though, I can't really pick out too many things. only small things really. The one thing that I could say is that the history professor seems a bit miscast. Perhaps he's not really that attractive, so it's not really that believable that all these girls will be kind of like lusting after him and kind of supporting him ahead of one of their own fellow students. He's supposed to be kind of like a sex symbol on campus, but he's not really that good looking really. So it's a bit strange, perhaps a bit miscast, like I say. Apart from that, in the very early scenes, there's a couple of characters that don't really get explained very well initially. So when you're very first watching it for the first, say, 20 minutes, it can be slightly confusing, but all of these things do make sense as it goes on. So those are only very small complaints. And I can confirm that as the film progresses, everything makes sense. It's all very well explained. It's just for the first 10 to 20 minutes, perhaps there were a couple of characters I didn't really know who they were, but it irons itself out as the film goes on. So only a very small thing, barely even worth mentioning really. But overall, in conclusion, I thought it was pretty good. I went into it with quite low expectations, not really knowing very much about the film, but it did impress me. That, like I say, it's a bit disappointing that the special effects aren't really there. The kills are all pretty boring, just stabbings and shootings, that kind of thing, all pretty plain. Some of them are off camera, but aside from that, pretty good though. Well worth checking out if you can find it. So I would indeed recommend it. Okay, thanks for watching and goodbye.